Hello, and a big warm welcome to the Guardian Doula's Diary podcast. My name is Angela Deuce, or Angie. I'm your host and the founder of Guardian Doula. I'm a certified birth and postpartum doula and childbirth educator based on Sydney's Northern Beaches and serving women and their families all throughout Sydney. This podcast is an honest collection of the stories and experiences of birthing women and the professionals that support them to empower, equip, and inspire us all. Let's get into it. Hello, I'm so excited for today's episode. First of all, it's the first episode back this year, which is crazy. I can't believe that I'm only uploading the first episode in March. But I had a really beautifully busy start to the year with lots of birth clients and my little one starting kindy for the first time, and my other little one had surgery. So it's been a busy time, but very excited to be back doing the podcast. This episode is going to be a really beautiful birth story from one of my past clients. And I wanted to really quickly, before the episode, before the conversation plays, I wanted to just say really just two quick things that I think are important. So number one, I want to emphasize that birth stories like this they don't happen by accident usually. Obviously there are those unicorn women that just seem to do nothing. They put nothing in place. They do no preparation and they have these really wonderful, straightforward, amazing births. But that's not statistically very common. And I just wanted to call out that Amber's beautiful story is the result of really taking charge and putting a lot of things in place to give her the best possible shot at this birth, right? So she made sure that she hired a doula, which we know from the research, if you work with a doula, you have a 50% decrease in your chance of cesarean, which is really, really significant, right? So especially if you're going for a VBAC, that's going to be huge. It's huge for any mum, but especially if you're going for a VBAC, that's really, really significant. So that's important to note, that she hired the doula. She was mindful of her model of care. She had continuity of midwifery-led care. She did lots and lots of unlearning and relearning. She did mindset work. She was so motivated with all of the OMP techniques and stretches that we used and did. So yeah, I just wanted to really, encourage you that this is possible for you too. If you make a decision and you sit here and go, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to put all the things in place and I am going to do absolutely everything that is in my power to give me the best possible chance at the birth that I hope for. You really genuinely can significantly improve your odds. And if you haven't already, I really encourage you, go and listen to my other episode about things that we can control about birth. I think the title of it is literally What We Can Control About Birth. Go and listen to that because I think that is essentially, that's what I did with Amber. A lot of that stuff is what we did. And also I'll say, look out for, the episode that I'm going to be posting next is going to be titled How to Have a VBAC. And we'll talk more about how to make it more likely that you have a VBAC and also what some of the statistics are, some of the research that's really helpful to know. And that episode I recorded it with Sammy Griffin, who is kind of a VBAC specialized doula. VBAC is her whole thing and that's what she mainly focuses on. She's a wealth of knowledge and has really solid experience. So I thought she'd be really great to bounce off for that episode because it's something that I'm super passionate about too. So yeah, I think keep your eyes out for that episode, or even better, make sure that you're on my mailing list if you want to be emailed the link. Whenever I upload a new episode of the podcast, I send the episode via email to all of my mailing list subscribers. So if you want that link, go onto my website and then scroll down the bottom and you'll find somewhere to sign up for that mailing list. It should just be at the bottom of any page. So yeah, really encourage you to do that. And the last thing that I'll say, the second thing I wanted to mention was that I am sending so much love to you. If you were listening to this because you had a really tough birth with your first, maybe you had a cesarean and, it wasn't what you wanted and you're looking for some hope or some encouragement or a confidence boost, I'm just sending you the biggest hug. And please know from the bottom of my heart that I am so sorry if you had a really rough or a traumatic birth the first time, or even if you just didn't really enjoy it. I have so much empathy for women who have a difficult birth experience. And I think, I just send you so much love and the biggest hug, and just be kind to yourself as you listen to this and know that you can have a beautiful redemptive birth as well. And I think, what we talk about in this episode is how possible that is, and how, anyway, I won't say too much. I'm just going to play the conversation, but I just wanted to send love to anyone who's listening. And this is like a touchy subject for you. I'm just sending you love, and I'm mindful of you. But yeah, anyway, enjoy the episode, and I'll see you next week for the How to Have a VBAC episode. Okay, amazing. Well, why don't we just get started? I'm so excited to just sit down and take a little trip down memory lane, because your birth was just so beautiful. There's so many different reasons. But why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and share who you are? And then we can just start unpacking your beautiful unmedicated feedback.
Very exciting. Thank you. So I am a mother of two. First child is 2.5 and second is now 4.5 months. I am originally from New Zealand, and I've been in Australia for 4 years now. Me and my partner moved over during COVID. And then before you knew it, we found out we were pregnant and had a baby. So plans changed drastically, but it's been amazing. And we're loving every minute of being here and being parents. So I might just jump into a little bit of my experience with my firstborn, Imani. So I found out I was pregnant, and I had no idea about the model of care here in Australia. All I knew was back in New Zealand, you find a midwife, and that is your midwife for all your antenatal appointments and your birth. And I got a rude awakening when I phoned my GP, and he said, actually, there's all these different models of care, and you can try and get on the MGP program, but often there's like a long wait list, and it's kind of like first come, first serve. So I was really upset about that. Yeah. And I even thought about flying back to New Zealand to have, Imani and continue my pregnancy there, because I feel like it's really important to have that, that connection with your midwife and someone who gets to know you throughout your pregnancy. And I was quite scared and nervous about seeing a different person each time, and kind of having to feel like I'm explaining myself and not having that like personal relationship. And it was also quite hard because it was during COVID, so we were going in and out of lockdowns, and then they basically shut the borders to New Zealand. Well, New Zealand shut the borders, and I had no option anyway to fly home. And I didn't have the option of having my mum fly to be with me as well during my birth. So it was all a bit of a roller coaster, but I went with the flow. And I ended up having in-clinic appointments with the same midwife, which was great, but a different midwife for the birth. My pregnancy was great, just the normal morning sickness. And however, with Imani, during her some of her scans, some of her measurements were just a little bit out, which the midwives and the pediatricians were, well, I suppose obstetricians, were a bit worried about. So they encouraged me to have a scan. I think I was 40 weeks on the dot, because I really wanted to go the full 42 weeks to wait to see if she'll come out naturally. And yes, absolutely, to avoid being induced. Because I did what I thought was research during my pregnancy, just around birth and my options. But going through what I went through was a huge wake-up call for me, and I was actually really ill-prepared. And so all I knew was that I wanted to naturally go into labour, and I wanted to go the full 42 weeks, but the midwives and the doctors were a bit concerned. So I had a scan at 40 weeks, and there they said, amniotic fluid's low, and I think they were saying that her abdominal circumference basically wasn't growing as much as they would like. So me trusting in the midwives and the doctors, I was basically like, what are my options? They said, you need to be induced. Let's get this baby out. She's better out than in. And I kind of was just, put on the spot, and I felt like I panicked a little bit, and I was like, well, I don't want her, to go into shock or any other complications with her. So yes, let's do the induction. And I remember being taken upstairs, and I didn't sign a consent form. I wasn't explained the different induction methods. They just went with it, and pretty much straight away I started feeling cramps. And I said to the midwife, oh, is this normal? She says, oh, no, it doesn't work for, 12 to 18 hours. You're fine. I was like, oh, okay. And so I spent a few hours just really cramping, and then I thought, oh, I better start timing them. And then a few hours later, I felt like, no, like that something's happening. And I remember her saying, we can pull out the tape. Sorry, I forgot the name of the induction method. It was the
That's okay. The prostaglandin tape. Yeah.
Yes, prostaglandin tape. So
Yeah.
she said, we can take it out and that slows things down. So a few hours later, she has a look. She goes, oh, yeah, you're 3.5 centimeters. Like, let's get you down to the birthing suite. I thought, oh, okay. And yeah, so I spent my time labouring, and I had the doctors coming in, and I kept asking for more time. And yeah, essentially they laid me down, and they said they did a little blood test with on the top of the head just to see how stressed baby was, and they said no, she needs to come out. So that was, I think, about 18 hours later. And it kind of was like the movies. Everyone kind of just comes rushing in the room, getting you ready for your C-section. And I was lucky enough that they said, oh, we're happy for you to have a local. You don't need to go into general. And yeah, and then baby was born healthy and fine and perfect. And yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster. I was relieved that she was out and safe, but straight away, I remember when they told me I have to have a C-section, I just bawled my eyes out. And yeah, it was just that feeling of failure, I think, was ultimately what I felt. That I had failed, like, my baby and my body, and being able to deliver naturally, and the fact that she was distressed. And also, like, my husband as well, I felt like, even though he was just wanting to make sure we were both safe, I just had this thing in my head where I was like, no, I failed everyone and myself. So that was quite hard. And I, yeah, had Amani, went home, and things were well. And then I started to reflect back on things, and I started to reflect back on the process and how things were explained to me or not explained to me. And I started to get angry, and I started reading things online and about, just like looking at different bits of information and around, things like induction and your rights as a patient, um, and just all these things. And so I went from, being super upset and sad to quite angry. And my husband was like super angry too once we had found out that, the lack of information and everything that we were provided. And it was really hard because we didn't have any advocacy for us. So as patients or, new parents, we didn't really know what to expect, or, we had this idea of how birth and labour and everything should go. But in actual fact, when, things get thrown into the works, we had no one there to kind of say, hey, actually, you can think about this, or these are your options, or you can actually say no to this. We just went by what we were told, and we thought, okay, that's it. Like, we weren't explained anything. We weren't even given alternatives. So we just trusted the process. So as we started doing more research afterwards, it became clear that we were like, okay, no, that is not how things should have gone. And I felt in my own right that, it was a traumatic birth as such. So not necessarily traumatic in terms of, anything crazy, like, I don't know, but just traumatic in the sense that, like, I had laboured under this pain and then not given many options, and I'd gone through everything to end up in a C-section when actually all of this could have been avoided. And so then fast forward, and I actually found you online randomly. One of your videos popped up, and I had kind of heard about doulas before, but I actually had never looked into it thoroughly to be like, okay, what do they actually do? And I remember one of your videos popped up, and you oh, all your videos are great, but one of them was talking especially about advocacy and just like the right to say no. And that really grabbed my attention because I thought that is what I was missing, like in my first birth. And I just like clicked that follow button. I watched all your videos, and I remember looking at them going, yes, yes, this is so right. And I kept showing my husband Bernard, and he was like, yeah, that's great. And so when I fell pregnant, again, like for the second time, sorry, I was like, oh yeah, a doula. But then still, it kind of was just like in the back of my mind because I ended up getting on the MGP program with Randwick Hospital and Royal Women's. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to have a midwife, like, you know, the same midwife or, you know, a group of midwives. I'll be fine this time. And, you know, my appointments started, you know, happening. And I love my midwife. She was fantastic. And she was also in the same mind as me in terms of like my body, my rights, also giving me all the information, like all the different options. So that was great. However, fast forward to, I think I was like 8 months pregnant, and she says, oh, I'm going on holiday for 10 days and I'll be back in time for your birth if you go the full 40 weeks. And I felt this drop in my stomach, and I was like, no. I was like, I built this relationship up, and she knows me inside out, and I could actually drop anytime from now, because I think I was already like 35 weeks or something like that, 36 weeks. And she says to me, she says, you'll be okay. The other midwives are here, but have you considered hiring a doula? So this is my own midwife actually suggesting this as well. And I thought, yeah, which was like, when I look back at that, I'm like, I'm so thankful for that as well, because, you know, it's that extra encouragement. And I sat back and I thought, actually, I have been, you know, following, you know, a couple of doulas online, but I actually had never thought that I would need one, considering I had this midwife. So I left that appointment and I went straight back onto your page, and I was, you know, watching your videos and reading up on things, and I thought, like, I just instantly knew in my heart I needed a doula. And it was, I just, because I started to become fearful, which, like, I was like, I really don't want to go through what I went through the first time, and not knowing if my midwife was going to be there or not. I just kind of panicked and I was fearful. So when I found you, I watched your videos, and I said to Bernard, I was like, we need a doula. I need a doula. And he said, oh, like, are you sure? And like, basically running me through pros and cons, and we just talked it out. And he basically looked at me and he says, if you feel that you need one, then do it. And I'm just like, I just felt this instant like relief of like, okay, I've got this support from him. He knows that even though I have a midwife and I have him, he knows that I need that extra. And so that was great. So then we reached out to you, and we did the initial phone call, and that was great. And we hit it off straight away. And he loved you as well, even though he's a man of very few words. And it was great. And like, I just remember, honestly, like, I think I cried afterwards, because I just felt this instant relief of like, I'm going to have someone there that is for me. You know, like, my midwife is there, and that's great, but she's also bound to hospital policy and, you know, her managers and things like that. And she's there, you know, medically to make sure that the baby and I stay alive. But like, I have someone who is you, who is going to be there for me, to support me emotionally, also obviously physically, to support my husband, to make sure that he's okay, and he knows how to support me as well. And then also, I think the massive part for us that was really important was the advocacy. So to know that we would have someone in our corner should something arise during labour that's unexpected, we had someone there that could say, guys, this is, you know, you have time to think about it. These are your options. You can say no, or you can say yes, and these are the pros and cons of each of, you know, these options. And I think for us that was, one of the biggest things, and it was so important. And also just, like, having those sessions with you prior to birth, just the education sessions, they were just amazing, like that wealth of knowledge and like all the information you provide, but also just being able to talk that out with you and kind of just address all my fears and address all my concerns and actually voice that, because I've kind of been keeping it all inside. And, you know, I think when you brought it out of me, it was just immediately like, oh, okay, I can let that go. I'm not afraid of that anymore. And I think that was amazing as well, just to be able to voice all of that and let everything kind of go and that fear go prior to my next labour with Ivana. And that was huge, because I remember having the one session with you and I was like, oh, I'm really scared of the pain and blah, blah, blah. And then the next session I saw you and I was like, I'm not afraid of the pain anymore. Like I know that I was like, I know there's going to be some pain naturally, of course, but I'm not afraid of it. I feel like I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to roll with it and it's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great. And then, I think I was 40 weeks and 1 day exactly when I went into labor. And that was fun. So that started at midnight and I just was like, oh, these aren't Braxton Hicks. Like, this is quite different. And because remember, this is my first experience feeling like contractions like this, like with labor coming on naturally, because the first one obviously was the induction. So it was I loved it actually, because I was like, oh, my body is doing what it's supposed to do, what it knows it needs to do. And so I just went into labor and I remember it was like contractions every like 10 minutes, but they were mild, like, I could handle them. And I'd give you a call in the morning just to give you a heads up. And then, I just labored through the day and I just used all the techniques that you gave me, just in terms of like moving my body and kind of keeping busy, but at the same time resting. And, and just breathing techniques. Like, oh, I swear by the breathing. It's like, honestly, it's the best thing. I think it's like underrated, like, and how to breathe properly, I think, is important as well. And then and this is my recollection. My husband's might be completely different, but and I just remember around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they started kind of amping up, and I thought, oh yeah, there's something's happening. And then I think it was 10 o'clock at night, we said, Angie, we need you. And you arrived at home. And I remember you walked through the door and I was just like, oh, you're here. Because like, I had my husband and he's amazing. But just, seeing you, knowing that you have like all your knowledge and you just, I remember you just looking at me and you're like, you're doing great. And I was like thinking I needed to hear that, just that extra encouragement of just like, yes, I can do this. I've got this. And then it was great because I remember you just sitting with me and just assessing even if it was time to go to the hospital. And I think that was key as well, because, as you say, that if you go to the hospital too early, they're just all too quick to just put you on a timer and, get you ready to, either be induced if things aren't going the way they like, or, ending up in C-section potentially. And it's funny because that actually would have happened, guaranteed, to me, because I was a VBAC. Because all along my pregnancy, they were like, oh, you're at high risk of this and high risk of that. And, we only let you labor for this amount of time before we intervene. And I was like, no. Like, I've spoken to my doula, I've spoken to my midwife, and no, I know that that's not the case. Those aren't facts, basically.
Yeah, and even like the use of the word let. Like, we only let you labor.
Yes, 100%. And so this is the obstetrician, that was telling me about these things. And he was like, basically installing like a little bit of fear into me. And, and I remember him saying, oh, trying to give me statistics about, how many babies die, if I don't adhere to their policy and blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of like, no. You're not going to scare me. I've got my doula in my pocket and so, information. And I know that this is not the case. And like at the end of the day, like if everyone came to me and it was an actual emergency, like I'm not going to put my baby in danger.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time, no, I trust my body and I know what it needs to do. And I've got the support that I need. Yeah. So it was, so sorry, I kind of went on a sidetrack there, but what I was getting to is
no, it's really good. It's such an important point. It's so good.
And I just remember so when you arrived and then you thought labor's progressing, and we did the belly sling, was it?
Yes, we did some belly sifting. That was when I remember you saying that you were feeling some pain in your back and that it was quite intense back pain, which is there's lots of things that we can look out for, but that's one of the classic signs that the baby might be in a bit of a posterior position. So we got our little rebozo out. I remember doing some belly sifting. You were amazing. You let me do all my O&P tips and tricks. And
I know. I was like, just give it a go, like, and that's the thing that I really appreciate is just like the constant like suggestion and option of trying different positions and trying different movements. And that was so important. And like you explain, is like if baby's not in like a really optimal position, it can be a bit harder, like, or things take a little bit longer, So if you can change positions or use the belly sifting or all these different techniques, it can kind of try and help baby to, position themselves a bit better in order to come out. So that was really good. And then I remember you phoning the hospital, and my midwife, apparently none of them were on call that evening, and no one had told me. And I had spoken to her that morning as well to let her know I was in labour. And even then, no one told me, oh, okay, if you come in tonight, no one's going to be on call. So that was a bit of a shock.
Totally. And this is a really, really common thing. Like, a lot of women will get into the MGP. Well, I mean, actually, no, a lot of women don't get into the MGP. As you said, it's really hard to get into. But if you do get in, a lot of those women who are in the MGP don't quite realize that there's actually no guarantee that your midwife will be there for your birth, because depending on the hospital and depending on the midwife's working hours and stuff, they aren't on call for you 24/7 necessarily.
100%.
Which is a bit of a kick in the guts when you haven't been told that. I think a lot of women, if they knew that their midwife isn't necessarily guaranteed to attend their birth, they probably would hire the doula or, do other things. So it's a tough one. Good to call out in case there's anyone listening that thinks like, oh, I'm in the clear because I'm in the MGP. Like, you may not be.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my case. And and that's even another reason why I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I had you, because my midwife wasn't available. No one in the group, the midwife group. So they had 4 midwives in our group, and none of them were on call that evening. So that, I'm in labor and I'm like, oh my God, my midwife's not going to be there. So lucky I had you. And it was funny because I remember when you phoned to say, hey, blah, 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 and this is her case. She's a VBAC. And the minute the midwife who answered the phone heard that I was a VBAC and that I had been laboring for however long, I heard her immediately say, oh, she needs to come in. And I immediately, I'm in labor, but I got my my backup, because I was like, hang on a minute, like, you don't know exactly what's been happening. Like, obviously we just explained it to you, but her immediate reaction was to, oh, come in. And I had this feeling of, oh yeah, they want me to come in because to them VBACs are super high risk, and immediately they're going to put me on a timer. That's how I felt. And then speaking to you, I remember you saying, no, it's fine. When we get there, we just continue what we're doing, like, you don't have to do anything, we'll explain you your options, but you just keep doing what you're doing, and, baby will come. And I remember feeling so reassured in that moment to be like, okay, Angie's here. So for mean old midwife, not that they're all mean, but, if someone says to me, no, you need to do da-da-da-da, then I know that I had you to back me up and, advocate for me, which was, like I said, super important to us. And I just remember getting in the back seat of the car as we drove to the hospital, and and then just getting into the hospital and just being put into a room. And something that was really important to me is that I wanted to have a water birth. So an unmedicated water birth was my goal. And I remember getting there and they said, oh, there's no room available. And I was like, oh no, like, I've run into no midwife. No room with the water, with a pool. And I thought, no, I just need to concentrate. It's okay. It's going to work itself out. And then I remember you saying to the midwife, she really wants a water birth. Can you please, just have a look and see if there's anything available? And then I remember her coming back and saying, actually, we're just going to move someone up to the ward. We'll clean it and then it's all yours. And again, I was just like, oh, Angie, thank you. Because I would have just accepted that, had you not been there, I probably would have just accepted that fact that it's not available and just continued my labor. So it was so good that you were able to, do that for me. And then, I just remember moving into the room, and I immediately, again, I felt relaxed because I was like, great, I've got the pool there, shower there, all these different tools, and I'm being looked after, by you and my husband, like, to kind of like read the room, know what my wishes were, and help to ensure that, that I could get the birth that I was after. And then, I like, obviously being a VBAC, and, the doctors are concerned, and I remember them coming in a couple of times and asking for me to have vaginal examinations, which I wasn't too keen on unless, I needed to. So we managed to say no to those confidently a couple of times, which was great. And again, had you not been there, I probably would have given in, because when you're in that moment and you're in excruciating pain and you've been laboring all day and you're absolutely shattered, the last thing that you want to do is just fight against, a doctor or a midwife, whoever it might be. And by fight, I mean, like, just to say no. That's the last thing you want to do when you're in that moment. And I just remember when they were asking me, and I shook my head, and I could just hear you like saying to them she doesn't want to have one, and you obviously would ask me.
Yeah.
And before you reply to them, you would relay that to them. And I remember them coming back saying, oh, we want to do monitoring. And again, I was a bit apprehensive. And I think it's just because I didn't want to say yes to one thing and then it's a snowball.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I remember you explaining to me that, there are times where it is beneficial to either have an examination at a certain point or some monitoring. But again, it would be my decision.
Yeah.
So I remember in that time, I started to get a bit upset because I thought, oh no, like my body's failing me again, and I started to have these doubts. And then I remember saying to you, like, what do you think? Like, should I, shouldn't I? And you were saying to me, it's absolutely my choice. And you gave me the pros and cons of both. And what was really good is that you ended up saying, how about we do the monitoring? And you say to them, I only want to do it for an hour and then it's coming off if everything's all good. And see, I wouldn't have even known that that's an option. Like, I would have thought they put the belly monitoring on me and then that's it. I have to stay like that. But knowing, and then you had that suggestion of, okay, if you feel comfortable, you can do an hour. If everything's all good, take it off. And I was like, yes, that's like a great option because then I can check that the baby's okay. The doctors will be happy and hopefully leave me alone. And then it can come off and I can get back to laboring, like either in the shower or, whatever I need to do. And that's exactly what happened. Had my monitoring. Everything was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It came off. I could move around again and the doctors left me. And it was just, my midwife arrived in the morning, which was great.
Yes, I remember she eventually got there for the end, which is so good that she made the end. So good.
Yeah. And she came for the good part. And and I think what was really great as well is that the breathing, and you helped me with the breathing, and I laughed about that afterwards because I was like, poor Angie, for hours and hours she was going and all counting 1, 2, 3.
No, it was a joy. It was a joy.
I was laughing because Bernard, he got over the counting, and I remember him just saying to me, long breaths in and out, but I in that moment needed the counting. And so I remember saying, Angie, count with me please, and you're like, yes, let's go. So that was great. It got me through some of those really tough contractions because I remember having lots of like double peak contractions where you explained to me it's like back-to-back contractions because optimal positioning again. And then to be honest, like towards the end, it was like a little bit of a slight blur for me. I just remember being in the shower and I remember you and the midwife saying, okay, let's jump in the pool because I think my waters had broken in the shower after hours and hours. And then, finally we got in the pool and then just immediately I just felt this urge to push. It was, completely different, obviously, to the contraction feeling. And away we went. And that was intense. But, like, at the same time, I was like, we're here. Like, I've made it. And in that moment, I was like, I'm doing it. Because it was quite a few times, I don't know if you remember, quite a few times through my labour, I was like, I can't do it anymore, it's too hard. And then you and Bernard would be like, you're already doing it. You've got it. Like, keep going. And so in my head, I'd be like, yes, I do have it. But I think just, in those moments when you're just quite vulnerable and you're tired and you're in pain, you feel like you can't. But once you have someone just encouraging you, you're just like, yes, I'm doing it and I can do it and we're nearly there.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I just remember pushing and I was just like, this is surreal. Like, I'm doing it. Like, she's going to be here any moment.
Yeah.
And, and then I just remember pushing and her head came out and I was like, just, in pain, but just relief. Like, I've done it. She's almost here. And, before I knew it, she was in my arms and I look back at the video. That's the other thing. Thank you so much for the videos and the photos.
Oh.
Initially, like, I thought, oh, no, I don't want to look back at, myself in that pain or, going through labor. But now when I look back at it and I scroll through, and I have a look at the videos and the photos, I'm just so thankful for that.
Oh.
It's so special to me. I've watched it a couple of times and, have a little cry.
Yeah.
But I'm just, like, so happy. And just to be able to reflect back on those and have that forever is just amazing. So, sorry, I forgot to say thank you for that as well.
Oh, such a pleasure.
And so, anyone listening, like, get the photos and get the videos. You may think you may not want it, but it's super special and super important. I think, everyone should do that. And then just, the support that you gave me afterwards as well, just like, with the delivering of the placenta and just ensuring that, the cord was white prior and not pulsing prior to cutting.
Yeah.
And just, even afterwards, just the care that you give, the offer to, help shower or, establish breastfeeding or, whatever I needed. You were still there after, all those hours of labor and then birth. So I'm so appreciative of that. And I remember my midwife saying, oh, I've got, some other mothers that would highly benefit from a doula. I'll pass your details on. And I was straight away, I was like, yes, I'll recommend Angie anytime, anywhere.
Oh,
Because,
so nice.
I just remember that. And but even for my midwife in that moment to be like, I'm so glad that she had you, like that I had you, and that she has other mothers that would benefit from having you as a doula. Like, that's incredible, And I know I've watched videos and you speak about the relationship between midwives and doulas. Like, it's a joint effort,
Totally.
It's not like midwives against doulas or anything like that.
No,
You both serve your own purpose.
Yes.
And it's so important. You're both there for, mother and baby in slightly different capacities, but you actually work together beautifully. And I experienced that firsthand. And honestly, like, my husband wants 5 children. And he was like, yep, we're going to have a doula every time because, for him it was a relief as well because, he could support me in other ways. But he also, there's a couple of times where he needed to kind of, step back and go get some fresh air or, some water, and you were still there with me the whole time. So that was quite important as well, that he felt supported and that he trusted me in your hands. Like, that he was happy to leave me there laboring with you and he'd go, have a break, some fresh air, and then come back into the trenches with me. But yeah, it's just honestly, like, it's just changed everything for me. Like, even my recovery, just having no medication and just a natural birth. I was on just like this natural high. And the recovery, I was just amazing. Just, a million times better than the first time round. And I was actually shocked. I was like, wow, this is how it's meant to be. And I was just so proud of myself. I was like, that whole feeling the first time around of being a failure and everything, like, it was all gone because I achieved my unmedicated water birth, and I did it. I was just so proud of myself. But really, honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. And I know that for a fact because even though I trust my body and I knew what I needed to do in those little moments and those really important moments that you either give encouragement or advocacy, like I said before, like I would have just given in because, I'm in so much pain. But yeah, it's amazing. And like, to be honest, like now I'm like, yeah, bring on baby number 3. Like,
I love that.
just bring Angie and we'll be fine, like I'll be able to do it.
That's so good.
So it's just changed everything, my view. And I'm a huge advocate as well, like in terms of when I'm speaking to family or friends or work colleagues, everyone, I'm like, if you're gonna have a baby, well, friends and family, hire a doula because it just changes the experience completely. And I think if more women knew about it or had access to one, they would 100% do it. And and I think more women should know about it. And I think it would really decrease women's experiences of traumatic births. Because like when you listen to different women on podcasts or in person and they speak about their traumatic births, a lot of it has to do with like the advocacy and the information they're given and their options basically. And a lot of them speak about just trusting the system because obviously they're medical professionals, and also not knowing that you can say no. There's that fear that gets instilled into people. But when you actually look at facts and, research or, the proven facts, it's actually not the case. But, you need someone to kind of advocate for you because you're not going to remember everything, are you? Especially when you're in labour.
Totally. It's I always compare it to like when you do a first aid course and you sit there doing the course and you remember everything and you're like, yep, I've got this, I'm all across it, I feel super informed. And then oftentimes when you're thrown into a really intense situation and you've now got to like draw on that information and apply those skills that you learned, it's really, really hard to recall everything and to
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment. And I mean, not only in the heat of the moment, but also when you're tired and you've been laboring a long time. And like, I just want to emphasize, Amber, like, oh my gosh, you were incredible. And I will never forget your determination and your grit and your, because I mean, you say that you couldn't have done it without me. And honestly, like, I have to challenge you on that, because you were just so strong and so determined. And watching how deeply you dug and how much you showed up, like you were willing to, even with all of the optimal maternal positioning stuff, you know, all those OMP techniques that we used, like they only
Yeah.
work and are helpful because you were willing to try things and you were willing to just, you know, like it was so much of it is your strength and your willingness and your determination. And I think, yeah, like I just got goosebumps before when you were talking about that feeling of failure going away. Like, oh my gosh, I actually was capable and I could do it and my body did know what to do. And that first time around, like, it absolutely wasn't you failing. It was, unfortunately, like, I would say the system failed you. You know, you weren't given
Yes.
all of the
Yeah.
information. Like, that's the reality, you know, because you could do it and you did do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you were just phenomenal. And I will never forget the look of redemption on your face, like that redemptive smile when she came out and you held her. I just remember you looking up and it was just this moment of like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I did it, I did it, I did it. And it was just so precious.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's so surreal. Like, you know, when you sit back and you think about it, and like, I just think in that moment, yeah, like I did it. And I feel so fulfilled now. And I just kind of like, and that's the thing, is like anyone can do it. Like everyone can do it.
Yeah.
And just like you said, just like believe in yourself and, you know, trust that instinct that you have. And yeah, it's, oh, what an experience.
Oh, so
Bring on
good.
baby number 3.
Yes, bring it on. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Even though you've got to travel a bit further now.
No, I'll do it. I'll travel anywhere for you guys. You guys definitely.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
There was something that you said that I think is so big and crucial, and it was that you said the first time around you were like, yeah, I just decided I was going to go with the flow, or I went with the flow.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think so often those are the famous last words, and I love that you changed that narrative the second time, because you learned like going with the flow doesn't necessarily work, you know, in a world where a lot of hospital policy unfortunately isn't based on good evidence, and it can take 17 years for evidence to become hospital policy. Like you can't go with the flow. It's not enough, unfortunately. And I think the way that you put all the right things in place and you were willing to, you know, sit down with me in those birth prep sessions and unpack the first experience, and we dove into your fears and we, you know, we really processed that stuff. Like it's so amazing, because I think like a VBAC, especially in a hospital setting, and especially a completely physiological VBAC, like even your third stage, you know, you didn't even have the syntocin injection for the placenta. Like it was completely physiological. That doesn't happen statistically on its own or by accident.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's so beautiful how you were like, this time around, I am not going to just go with the flow. I'm going to put everything in place that I can, and I'm going to unpack the experience. I'm going to do all the things, and I'm going to just give this thing the best possible shot. And then, hey, if it ends up in another cesarean, at least I'll know that I threw everything at it and I gave it the best.
Yeah.
You know, I gave myself the best chance. But
Yeah.
you didn't have yourself in a position where you were left wondering, like, man, I wonder if I hired a doula or if I did all the birth prep, like, would I have ended up there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, that's exactly it. I knew that I had done the prep with you, and had you there, and knowing that as long as I try everything, like you said, if I end up in a C-section, then it'll be, you know, knowing that I had tried everything, and that I had advocated for myself and I had said no to certain things. But if it did end up in a C-section, then it would be a beautiful C-section, you know, and I would have felt fulfilled knowing that I had exploited all my options. And if it ended up that way, then, you know, I would have been happy, you know, knowing that I had tried everything and I had all the information there. But yeah, I'm just so happy that, it went the way that it did. And I remember I laughed to myself now thinking how silly I am, but because I was like, no, I want absolutely no medication. I remember being offered Panadol. It's just Panadol. And I was like, no, don't want it. I'm saying no to everything else. I'm not even going to say yes to Panadol. And I remember that, and I was like, oh, you're so silly. But I think I was just so determined, and I was like, no, I'm not even going to give in just a little bit.
You literally looking at the midwife and being like, no, like I've done everything. I've come so far. I've done all of this. And you were like, I'm not going to take Panadol now. Like, what for?
I know. I was like, it's not going to do anything. But oh.
You just had this glow about you, this glow of like, I can do anything. I've just conquered the world. I've just had my VBAC. And you were like, Panadol, like, you know who you're talking to. I don't need Panadol. It was so good. Just the confidence on you. And it's like, there would have been nothing wrong with you having Panadol, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The point was just like the confidence and the like, I don't need that. Like, I am a boss and I've just done this and I don't need anything.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so funny when I remember that. It makes me laugh. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, I can do anything, you know? I can absolutely do anything now. And I know that I can do it again. But I think, yeah, like it's just so important that to note that even though I have done it and I know I can do it, I still wouldn't do it again without a doula, because I just feel like, yeah, when push came to shove and I was in those, you know, those moments where I just felt like I couldn't, like you were there. And I think that's so important because, like I said, even though I've done it, the next time around if something popped up, you know, who knows? Like if I don't have you there to kind of talk me through it or advocate for me, who knows what might happen, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's like, because initially that's what I thought. I thought, oh, I've done it. I don't need a doula again. But then I was like experiencing it. I was like, no, I have to have a doula every single time I have a child now.
Yeah,
So
it's so true. I think I totally agree. And like, even just the fact that every birth is so different, like
exactly, yeah.
you never know going into it, like what position your baby's going to be in. You don't know at what point in the labor your waters are going to break, if they're going to break. You don't know how overdue you'll go. You don't know what sort of energy reserves you'll have. You don't know who's going to be on staff that day. You don't know, like there's so many factors that can be different.
Yeah, so at some point, so yeah, no, so we're doing well. So 4.5 months in, and yeah, no, it's great. Like I'm loving it. It's amazing.
So amazing. You are amazing.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, we'll just plan the next one.
Sounds good. Oh, so good, Amber. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your beautiful story. It was so special. I love it.
I was like so shy initially, and I thought, oh, but then at the same time I was like, no, it's important to share my experience, because there could be someone out there listening who's not quite sure, or you know, like about whether or not hiring a doula, or like you said, someone who might think, oh, we'll just go with the flow.
Yeah.
I think it's just so important. Yeah, like if there's someone listening that they might hear this and go, actually, no, I need a doula, or you know, I need to do more research, or whatever it may be. I hope that I can help someone out there by sharing my story. So yeah, thank you for having me on, encouraging me to come on.
You're amazing. Great. You're amazing.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a rating or a comment, and I can't wait to see you back here for the next one.